Hey there guys, how's it going for today? In today's video, I'll be discussing kill or be killed decks. Alright, so what is a kill or be killed deck? Essentially, a kill or be killed deck is essentially what it sounds like. These are decks that I have a big problem with. Basically, either you kill whatever they're doing and stop them all the time from doing what they're doing, or you get killed basically right away, This is different from like real like CDH decks or combos and whatnot. Like decks like Tergrid and things like that, those are decks that I would consider in this space. There are a few others, but Tergrid's like the main like one that a lot of people will like think of and talk about and things like this. I really hate commanders that are like this, where it's like, well, everyone's just got to kill Tergrid and get rid of Tergrid every single time, because if you let Tergrid stay out on the field, then the game's basically over for the other three players at the table. But the player that's playing Tergrid isn't going to have a good time. But of course, again, when the Tergrid player's having quote-unquote the good time, the other three players at the table aren't having a good time, and it's just one of those things where you basically will lose no matter what if you let the player who has a Tergrid or any of these other style of commanders that just basically fall into this category, untap and play their commander, or let them have their commander for any like specific time, or they have one of these cards in their decks, whatever. They just take over the game. They're somewhat oppressive. In fact, they're fairly oppressive commanders for the most part. There are some commanders that are fairly fair to a degree, like what's his name, Grand Arbiter. But again, for the most part, like some people will play like a lot of these one-drop artifacts and things like that, and then have something that's like draws them cards for playing artifacts. So basically it's a blue-white storm style deck where they basically just churn through their whole deck by casting all these artifacts and whatnot for basically zero, and then drawing cards and whatnot, or doing something else with them, proliferating, and then getting lethal commander damage or whatnot, things like this. There's all sorts of different things that basically if you find a deck that's like this, it it when you look at it, and when somebody plays it, it's this deck again, right? Well, we can never let this person basically play the game. I hate that. I want to let everyone play the game. I want to see what cool, fun, janky, interesting, different, unique things people's decks can bring to the table. But these seem to be like the mainstream decks or whatnot, whatever. I don't know. Or just the decks that just seem like, I don't know. I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it's one of those things that, like Toxrill, I think it was very hyped, and at first I was thinking it wasn't all that good, but having played against it, I've found that it's quite annoying. So mainly, besides saying, oh, well, I don't like playing against this, but I think a lot of people don't like playing against these sorts of decks, and I don't think people who play these decks actually enjoy playing these decks that much, because like half the time they just go, oh, well, I don't get to play the game, and I'll just sit here and pass the turn every time because, well, my commander's busted, and then once I do get to do something, I go, oh, wow, geez, like I feel bad or whatnot or whatever. But, it's like that when you first read a lot of these commanders, because I think a lot of people are like, wow, that sounds really cool, I can do all this janky, fun, mean stuff to people, and then they're like, oh yeah, being mean to people is a bit boring and a bit poopy, and no one really likes it. Why am I playing this deck and whatnot? All this sort of thing. I think it's one of those things where it's like very tantalizing to look at some of these like ideas and decks and things like this and go, oh yeah, that sounds cool or whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you actually start playing them and playing with real people and whatnot, it's like, oh yes, yeah, maybe I don't want to play this or whatnot, whatever, because it is a deck where it's like, yes, I can do a lot of things and stuff. I can slow my opponents down and, do that. But then what? My opponents really can't do anything. And then what am I going to do? Oh, yes, this is a very slow, dull, and boring game. If I'm doing what I want to be doing, and then what are my opponents doing? They're not doing anything. Okay, cool. This is not fun for my opponents. I don't understand why they want to play against me again either, or against this deck either. So maybe, this was a cool idea, but maybe I won't pull it out so often, or I'll pull it out against only certain play groups or whatnot, things like that, whatever. But again, like when you go, well, it's actually not being that effective or whatnot against, a bit higher level of a power group, then it's like, well, yeah, sure, that is what happens, because again, or it might be more effective sometimes because you like, well, they can't get their commander out because they're most of like the CDH commanders are like 1/1s or 2/2s, and things like this, or 2/1s or whatever, different things like this. So again, taking some of those abilities away for them to really play those cards a lot really does hamper them more, and you don't know what's in their hand that they're not casting or whatnot. And it does hurt people a lot to have to try to work around these things, be like, okay, do I have any like things that are in my deck that are like buff enchantments and things like this, whatnot? What do I have that can help me, like, especially when you're like a go wide tokens deck and things like this. Toxel's a really hard commander to go up against. It's like, wow, all my stuff is 1/1s or 2/2s. So, yep, I'm never going to get anything on the board after a certain point, and everything on my board's going to get wiped every single other turn because it's every turn or whatnot, whatever. So I'm never really going to be able to keep my board state for very long. And like, even if I have 4/4s, his turn, the next player's turn, or her turn, whatever, the next player's turn, and then my turn. Now everything's getting neg 4. So, like once it's back to me, it's like, well, like even if I had 4/4s, they'd be dead. And if I have 6/6s, now they're 2/2s. So they're not that scary. And in 2 turns, they'll be dead. So, well, might as well swing them in there. I'll get, maybe I'll get 2 chip damage. Wow. Like 2 or 3 chip damage, maybe 4. Who knows? But again, it's just like, wow, that doesn't really do a whole lot for me. And then am I able to establish myself after that? Probably not. So it's just very, very difficult to, get around some of these things. And like even with like I know with Tergrid decks, they run a lot of those artifacts and enchantments that basically say players draw extra cards and things like that. And the main reason for them playing like these cards that seem like group huggy and whatnot is so that they can steal more of your stuff, because they're like, well, I make people discard so much stuff that I've actually got to make them draw stuff so that I can actually make them discard stuff. Because a lot of the time when, things are kind of going well, it's like, well, like, yeah, now I say, okay, everybody discard a card, and everyone's like, oh, we're all empty-handed, bro. We didn't discard sweet FA, so well done. Go you. Things like that. So it's like one of those times where it's like you find yourself in those positions where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, great. I just wasted my time making everyone discard cards when they had no cards to discard. Or if I have, like, whatever it is, the Dark Wheel, whatever it's called, I can't remember its name. But anyway, if you have that, you basically just free drew everyone 7 cards. Because, like, if they have empty hands, what are they discarding? And then they're just drawing 7 for free. Like, if you have another discard outlet, then sure, if you have a way to flash it back, maybe that's going to happen. But again, whatnot, those are different things. But again, like, when you do those things, it's like, oh, well, I actually needed to get them to draw cards in a way as well, because, again, how am I going to make them discard more cards? The only way is if they have more cards in their hand, but it was half of a whiff because they didn't really have anything in their hands to begin with. So it's like, well, now what am I going to do? Now I just free drew them 7 cards unless I've got more stuff. But anyway, again, there's all those things that are just like, it's awkward to have to run some of these cards because it's like, well, what else can I do? That's the only way I can get enough cards in my opponent's hands. And boo-hoo me, I'm not able to play all my opponent's cards for 0 mana. Wow. And whatnot. So things aren't going real well. Even though I've got everyone's stuff or whatnot, when you're in that position, it's like, it feels like you're not winning, even though you are. It's like, well, no one really can do anything against me because I've got all their cards. So it's just one of those things. I've got all their lands, I've got all their mana, and anything they'd had that could kill my thing, now it's discarded, and it's just in the graveyard where they probably have a hard time accessing it. So, things like that. But anyway, it's just one of those things about a lot of these commanders I just do not like, and I think that we should try to move away from it a little bit. And I have found a lot of people that play in the play groups that I play with, they tried a lot of these commanders like once or twice and then were like, geez, this is just like no fun for me and no fun for anyone else. You know what? I'm not playing this deck anymore because it's just like, again, kill or be killed. If I don't get to play, then I'm sitting here being sad. But then if I get to play, everyone else is sitting there being sad, and there's no real middle ground. So it's just one of those things about these style of commanders. I don't know how we can stop like the mainstream of it changing and whatnot, but I would like to try to mitigate this sort of thing. But you can't stop people from some people from wanting to play these decks because that's the way that they look at it, or they look at it as and not like, am I having fun? Is my opponent having fun? And that's the way I look at it, again, but they look at it as, did I win? Did I lose? Whatnot. That's how they look at it. They don't really care about the other things. And that's just like, again, that's where I'm at and where I tend to play. Or were people really complaining about it or whatnot and that sort of thing? It's not like I try to complain about it. I'm just like, dude, can you hurry up and just like win the game somehow, please? Because I don't want to sit here and watch you screw around for the next half an hour or hour or whatever, just like, complaining about how, you're not, the thread or you're whatnot or whatever, and all this sort of thing and whatnot, all that sort of stuff, whatnot, whatever. So it's just one of those things where, like, I know some people jokingly say it, but anyway, it's just like, yeah, no, come on, things like that. But anyway, guys, you can let me know what you guys think about kill or be killed commanders, those style of decks. What do you think? You can write your thoughts down there in the comments below. I'll try to respond to all the comments. I really do interacting with you guys, even if you agree or disagree with me. I really enjoy talking about all the geeky things that we all love. So yeah, that's all great. So we can all have that discussion if you want. And I'll definitely see you down there in the comments below, or I'll see you again in the next one. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out?